Hello, hello, and welcome to Shit You Wished You Would Have Learned in Grad School. I am your host, Jennifer Agee, licensed clinical professional counselor. And with me today is Montoyia McGowan. She is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's the owner and chief mental wellness therapist of Stopping the Chase Counseling and Consulting in Memphis, Tennessee. And most importantly, she's my friend. Today, we are going to be talking about entrepreneurs who struggle with codependency, and I cannot wait to dig into this topic. So, thank you so much, Montoyia, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited.
Entrepreneurs who struggle with codependency, that is a very specific niche. Tell me a little bit about that.
When I first started my private practice about 5 years ago, I was dealing with, I focused on women who struggled in relationships. And then over time, I started to see a trend of most of these women who struggled with the same type of relationships over and over again shared some commonalities that actually were related to codependency. They were the strong friend, the rescuer, the helper. And then when they learn that relationships, even with family or friends, were unhealthy and they weren't getting anything out of the relationship, or it had to be transactional, I was like, codependency, let's see where this goes. And then I attract entrepreneurs. So it was kind of like the same issues. They're the rescuer, they're the helper. As an entrepreneur, it's great because you're solving problems. But as a person, it's challenging to have boundaries if it's not something that you're used to.
Absolutely. And as helpers and healers, I think many of us are particularly vulnerable to some of the codependency traits. But before we dig into some of the specifics, I'd love to hear your overview of what codependency is, because I've heard so many people define it in different ways. So let's start with the same base knowledge. Talk to me about what you mean when you say codependent.
When I say codependent, I mean the person who is a rescuer, they are a helper, they are a nurturer, and they empower people, but it gets to the point to where they're actually enabling people. And a lot of times it ends up being the strong friend, the one who is there for everybody else, but is not comfortable with being a receiver. They're more comfortable with being a giver to a fault. The best explanation I've been able to explain is you're the fire that keeps everybody else warm.
Mm.
And the more the merrier until your light starts to get low and dim. And then these people move to another fire instead of trying to help you figure out how to reignite your own fire.
I love that. And it kind of goes into then what purpose does the codependency serve for the helper healer? Because it's meeting a need of ours, or else we would not be doing it. Whether or not
Right,
it's healthy, we are doing that for a purpose. What do
right.
you see as some of the drives that go behind the codependency?
The drive is adding value. If I can add value to someone else's life, that makes me feel valuable. That makes me feel worthy as a codependent person. And so if I get to the point to where I don't feel as if I have anything to give, I don't feel valuable even to the people that do love and care for me.
I think that's an important distinction, because we all want to feel like we have purpose in the world, right? Most of us want to feel like because we existed, because we are here, that someone else's life is better. And that does not equal codependency. It's where does my value and worth come from, and do I feel in the absence of producing for you, earning for you, rescuing you, does that then make me feel like I am no longer valuable, or do I have inherent value and worth for myself?
Mhm. I think it's kind of like a combination of both, but it
Okay.
becomes mental to your mental wellness when it becomes a cycle and you can't figure out how to get out of the cycle, and it starts to affect your quality of life.
Why do you think entrepreneurs are particularly at risk for being codependent?
Because these qualities are wonderful as a service provider. These qualities are wonderful as it relates to customer service and to working with people. And you get to, be compensated in a lot of ways in the work area for these characteristics or traits. But at home, it's different. With our personal or intimate relationships, it's different. And as an entrepreneur, we tend to blend or blur the lines when it comes to boundaries and expectations because we haven't figured out how to have healthy boundaries as it relates to home, which trickles down to how you tend to do things at work. So when it comes to our schedule, if in we're in our extreme codependency, we're working 7 days a week for whoever is available. We may have an appointment every 3 or 4 hours between a 7-hour span because this is when these people are able to come to me instead of having expectations of I'm available Monday through Thursday from 11 to 6.
Right. Yeah.
Any appointments on Saturday, you're like, I really don't. But I mean, for you, I will.
Yeah. Not putting your own needs as a priority first and then using your schedule to accommodate what other people need, even when it's sometimes detrimental to self. And as you were speaking, one of the things that came to mind is I wonder if in part entrepreneurs are more vulnerable in the codependency category is a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we see things other people don't see. We see the gaps that aren't being met. We are always kind of instinctively scanning to see where there's opportunity for growth, for serving other people, for increasing our business. And so we might be even hyper attuned to sometimes the needs or what's happening around us.
Right. It's what makes you a great service provider.
Yeah.
But when it comes to caring for yourself, you're not so good at those things. Or when home is starting to affect work and you're an entrepreneur, so you've got to figure out how to prioritize all of these things. But if you don't understand that some of it is codependency, then you'll just think that it's something that you're not doing that's not enough. Like maybe I need 2 more hours in the day, or maybe I can just open up my schedule more, or I can find somebody to take my kids to where they need to go because a client really needs me, not being aware of how those things affect your quality of life.
You've given some great examples of schedule and maybe not putting our needs as a priority, and then you just kind of fit clients in and then try and make your life work around what they want versus just saying this is what I need. Are there other ways that you've noticed with the clients that you work with or the people that you coach that this is coming out?
Yes, also in how we set our fees.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more about that.
So when we set our fees, sometimes we are doing them based on what we think people can afford versus what we actually need to survive or even to thrive, to be in a good place, to be able to provide good therapeutic clinical services without being in a state of burnout.
Absolutely. And fees is definitely one of those things where your own shit will come up, right?
Yep.
How much am I worth that amount of money? Am I, all of those little undercurrents of doubts and insecurities are prone to flare up under the best of circumstance. You add codependency in, and I can only imagine that that makes that particularly difficult.
Yeah, because and then don't forget about society feels that in our profession that we shouldn't, be charging the fees that some of us charge, or that we should accept all insurance, or really that therapy should be free. I've worked with someone where they were so good with their clinical services that they didn't feel like they were doing really hard work. And so because they didn't feel like they were doing hard work, they struggled with their fees because it felt too easy to them.
But it became easy because they did the work to get to the point where they were very competent in what they were doing and were able to flow nicely in a session, I'm sure. Mhm.
Right. So we had to work on separating the two. You know, these are your skills, these are things that you have learned to be good at. So it's not challenging. It is, you know, fairly easy for you. But also, that has nothing to do with the income that you need in order to maintain and sustain. So
Yeah.
having conversation with being able to separate those. But I'm thinking about when I first started, I had a call from a couple who wanted to come and see me, but they were like 2.5, almost 3 hours away.
Okay.
And so I was like, "Ugh, I don't want you guys to have to come and see me at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening, and then have to drive 3 hours back to wherever you have to go." And so I said, let me try to find you somebody that's closer. And
You talked yourself out of getting a client.
yeah, because my codependency had gotten the best of me. I was concerned about them having to drive 3 hours to come and see me. And also, I was thinking, are my fees worth somebody coming 3 hours to come and see me? Or am I even good enough for somebody to drive 3 hours one way to come and see me? But now that I've gotten my weight up mentally about
Yeah.
not being in dependent mode, I give you the appointment time that I have available, and I'll see you when you get here.
That's right. Yes, I love that. And I'm a clinical supervisor. And so I have supervised a lot of therapists in the beginning of their career. I absolutely love doing supervision. It's a part of my passion area. One of the things we always talk about is fees because it is the first place that your own stuff really becomes quite evident when you
Mhm.
start doing private practice. Is
Right.
do I feel worth the amount of money and all the things that you already mentioned? How do you help clinicians that you work with start to navigate that and break free?
Honestly, we always go back to codependency in some way or another, because they have their value is based on what they feel like they're giving out. It's a transaction. Everything regarding their value is based on a transaction, and sometimes you can't go based off of what you feel like you're worth, or what you think you need, or even what you think you deserve. And so having the conversation about money tends to show up in how they manage their schedules at home, how if they have kids, if they have another job. So managing their expectations and being comfortable with having expectations and sticking to it, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't supposed to be here.
Yeah. And as you're speaking, it just reminds me of a couple of examples in my own life. I I remember my grandmother was always very clear with boundaries and very good with boundaries, right? When I would say, "Grandma, can you watch the kids? We want to do X, Y, or Z." "No, honey, I've got bridge with my friends and I can't blah, 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 but I could do it on Tuesday." Okay. Now, my mother, on the other hand, this is not throwing her under the bus. It just is what it is, right? I would call, "Can you watch the kids? Blah, blah, blah. We want to do this." "Sure. Well, I have this thing. Let me move it and I'll do this and I'll do that." And I'm going to be honest with you. I really fell into that camp myself, being raised with a mom and watching that over the years of how can I will twist myself into a pretzel so that you are comfortable, so that
Mhm.
you have your needs, not necessarily taking mine first into account. And it was my grandmother's example that as I started to realize how unhealthy it was,
Yeah.
it made me pause and reflect and say, she says no to me all the time and I freaking adore her. Like it it's not going to take away my worthiness, my love, whatever. But I had two examples of what that can look like. And really it's because of that example that then I had an idea of what to work towards. And I'm wondering if that's a part of what you do with clients in the room and how you even set up your practice.
Yeah, it is, because we're in the South, and we're taught so many things as a part of our cultural norms. Be a nice person, take care of others, be a good neighbor. And we take it to the extreme, so much so to where if somebody tells you no, then you automatically assume that they're being mean or they're being a bitch. And so this person, like your grandma said, no, I've got plans. I had already planned something for myself. And it doesn't have to be anything big. It's just something that I want to do. So I am not comfortable with saying, your grandma was saying, I say yes to me.
Yes, she did.
And I'm not willing to compromise on some things because these things are important to me. But here's what I can do.
Yes, absolutely. Having that example was very helpful for me. And again, that's no shame or blame towards my mother. We all do what we do for a reason and a purpose, and it makes sense in our system. But it is one of those areas that I realized how much I was over functioning for people, and the cost and the price tag just became too high.
Yeah. The other thing is our cortisol levels. When we start to have an overflow of cortisol in our bodies, then that causes us to have inflammation. It causes us to have so many other physical things that are going on in our body because we're overperforming or we're bending backwards for people on a regular basis. Then bitterness and resentment creeps up because I'm mad that you're not treating me the way that I'm treating you. And so, just so many other things. And having therapy is a therapy session or conversations where you can practice ways to say no versus just saying no. Oh man, my schedule doesn't really allow for me to be able to do that. Or, yeah, that isn't something that I'm interested in. If you come up with something else, just let me know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
practice.
and it's no affront to someone that's asking, right? The
Yeah.
interpretation, that internal interpretation that can start to take place in a relationship is they aren't treating me the way I would treat them,
Mhm.
but they're not doing anything harm. They're asking a question. It's then up to us. We know what our boundary is, how far we're willing to go, what we're willing to do. And that's on us. That is not on them. It's okay for them to ask the question. It's up to you to decide how you want to respond.
Right. Right. And me saying no to you is not based on how much I value you. It's based on what
Absolutely.
today.
Absolutely.
Doesn't say Jennifer, no to everything because I don't like you. It's just Jennifer. I ain't planning on watching TV tonight, so I really don't want to go to the movies.
Mm-hmm. It does. It takes work for a lot of us as helpers and healers to be able to just say, I just want to sit in my jammy jams and do nothing tonight. I don't really want to do X, Y, and Z that I was invited to or that you asked of me. And there is a tremendous amount of freedom when you get to the point to be able to say and do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that's where Bougie Boundaries came from, to
Mm-hmm.
help people feel more comfortable about having boundaries. Boundaries are really just expectations and limitations. And so it's okay for you to have some healthy boundaries, because if you don't, when your cup starts to get empty, you start to get angry and upset and frustrated and mad at everybody, and you don't really know why, but it's because you've taken care of everything and everybody else, and you are on the bottom of the list if you ever even make it to the list.
Yeah, great point. And I think one clarification point about boundaries that I think, don't always communicate well as therapists is that a boundary isn't how much you're willing to let someone take. It's
Mm,
it's standing up for what is it that I want and need. It's up to me. It's not up to the other person as to how much I want to give, not how much they're trying to take. And there's a mentality shift of empowerment, I think, when you start to realize you're not the victim in this conversation.
yeah.
You have choice.
Yeah. And it also helped me be able to accept no from other people too.
Yeah, because if you can't accept no, then we got a whole nother conversation we need to have.
Right. And givers aren't comfortable with hearing no because we hardly ever ask. So when I do ask, I expect you to say yes because I've had this imaginary contract with you in my mind where I'm giving you everything I would want. So when I finally do ask, if you say no, the relationship is over.
That's right. When it's finally my turn to cash in. And I love that you said imaginary contract because you've got the nail on the head. That's what it is, right? In the absence of having a conversation around what are our boundaries around X, Y, or Z or expectations, we write the script of what we think it is or supposed to be. And in our mind, because no one's having the conversation with us, there's agreement where there might not actually be agreement at all.
Right. These are really common in friendships because we haven't, a lot of times when we become friends with somebody, especially in our younger years, we don't say, these are my expectations as a friend. We just kind of figure out whether or not how we do stuff works for us. And can I be okay with continuing to do that? I have a friend where we're writing a book together. And so at our last meeting, I decided to ask about how are we going to navigate when we're upset with each other about something or when we disagree? And we really had to sit there and explore what kind of reasons or what would be a situation where we would be upset with each other. Mm-hmm. It was healthy. And she said, I really appreciate this conversation because that gives us the opportunity to work on things when we're not in the midst of it or having to do an after action review.
And it also sets the expectation that relationships have moments and times where you are not in alignment and not in agreement. And that doesn't mean you chuck the relationship out. It means we have a conversation.
Yeah. When I was thick in my codependency, I used to pride myself on being a nice person. And I didn't realize that when I got to a point to where I'm giving Montoyia and I'm not getting Montoyia back, or when I finally get the nerve or the courage to ask for something and you say no, then I'm done with you in my mind forever. And I would be very passive aggressive with how I did stuff. And I also wasn't comfortable with telling people what my real authentic feelings were. And I didn't realize that had seeped into friendships and even with me as a mom. Mm-hmm. So when I started learning, oh, this is what codependency is. And we also attract narcissists on every spectrum because we feed off of each other.
Okay, tell me about that.
So narcissists, everything is about them.
Sure.
Codependence, everything is about serving. So it's great in the beginning until we get to a point where we're expecting us from the narcissist and they're not able to give it to us, then that's when the rift starts.
That is a great point, and that makes perfect sense. As you were talking, a couple things popped in my head, and one of them was, I think myself as a woman, I have no experience of what it feels like to live as a man, but I can say as a woman, I think the societal norms that are spoken over us about being the nice girl, being a good woman is accommodating, she's helpful, this laundry list of stuff, which when in balance is wonderful, but when taken to an extreme becomes very unhealthy. It took me probably until my mid 30s where I felt as strong and confident in myself as a woman with being able to stand in my own space and say, I don't have to apologize for my needs and wants. I don't have to consider what you need or want before I take my needs into consideration. And it took a long time to kind of undo some of that, even cultural training.
Yeah. We are cultivated to be codependents. You sacrifice yourself for the benefit of everybody else. And if you don't do that, then you're being selfish.
Yeah. And to be selfish as a woman, you get all sorts of labels, right?
Yes.
You're difficult, you're a bitch, you're this or that or whatever. Like you get all sorts of labels. And so I think some of peeling apart those codependent parts,
Mm-hmm.
I can only speak to women for
Yeah.
myself, right? Becomes difficult because all of that kind of ties into also identity, which is then linked with the value and the worth that you've talked about. So I
Mhm.
can imagine that this is not work that just gets done overnight.
Yeah. And then as an entrepreneur, the lines are blurred. As a mompreneur, you're expected to do so many things to where I have clients, and I've experienced this before, embarrassed to have a housekeeper. But I don't have the power or the emotional energy to make decisions at home, make decisions at work, and then be responsible for the maintenance of everything, which is a never ending to do list. So, having somebody to wash your laundry or to clean your house for you feels like you're lazy or you're not doing enough.
That is a great point. Um, And I want us to talk for a few minutes about some solutions, right? I can tell you some things that I have done. One of them you've already mentioned, and I'd love to hear some of yours. My number one thing is I sat down and I had a come to Jesus with myself. I
Mhm.
realized I was starting to burn out, and I just took my whiteboard. I have a whiteboard in the kitchen, and I said, what is it that I actually like to do? I wrote that out. What is it in another column I do not like to do? I wrote those things out. What is my ideal schedule if I'm not taking anyone else into consideration? What do I really want my schedule to be? I
Mhm.
wrote all of that out and I put my entire business around that. I set a schedule that I want. I don't say yes to things that I do not want. There's an embrace the suck in any part of being an entrepreneur at times, but that's for a short stint and for an intentional purpose. And the
Right.
things that I did not like, I hired out. I just made the decision. I'm tired of feeling like I'm supposed to do all this stuff. I don't like doing, I don't like having to clean the house. Like I do the regular stuff, but the deep clean, all the baseboards, I do not enjoy that. Like I would much rather work an extra hour a month and pay somebody or, a couple times a month and pay somebody to do that.
Right.
Happy for me to make that change. So that's one of the things I did for myself. What are some things that you recommend that could be practical for our listeners to start to put in place?
I like that. That is something wonderful that people can start to implement. And even if they can't get to a point yet, with the people in their house or in their household, they can add chores to people with their expectations of, I'm not doing it, you're going to do it. And if you don't, there will be consequences, and hold people accountable for your expectations.
Mm. Implement the language for yourself of I will not overfunction for other people's underfunctioning.
Yes. And your crisis is not my crisis.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also have a calendar, and I've had people get offended when they ask me if I can do something. And I'm like, wait, let me check my calendar.
Yeah.
Because I would overcommit, I would double book myself for something on this side of town. I've got 27 minutes to get to the other side of town and so many other things to do. So I was like, okay, wait, stop.
Hmm.
What do you want to do? What do you have time to do? And don't forget to put yourself on your calendar. Like block out things for yourself. Even if you don't use it initially, start to get in the habit of having those expectations.
I love that. It, consulting the calendar and then setting realistic expectations. If it's really 45 minutes away, it's okay to say, I can be there 15 minutes later because it's going to take me 45 minutes to get there. Will that work for you or shall we choose another time? One of the things I want to give some hope to maybe people who are resonating with this as they're listening to it, what I found for myself, and tell me if this is true for you, as I have asserted healthy boundaries, people know them now and they don't get pushed that often. So even my clients know, oh, well, I know you're not in on Fridays. No, I'm not. That's my Build My Empire day. Fridays is that's what I call it. I record podcasts. I do things that are for business growth. Oh, I know you don't work past 4. Yep, that's right. So as people start to know what your boundaries are, they start to push back less and less, and they stop to even, I mean, people don't even ask me a lot of times around some of the core ones that I've been vocal about.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, if you're a business owner, have hours of that you are available and help other people know how you do business.
Mm.
So it's, hey, my friend is looking for a therapist, are you available? Yes, tell her that I work Monday through Thursday. My hours are this, and I'm not available on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So help other people know what your hours are and how you like to do stuff. Teach people how to do business with you.
And then don't rescue it. That's the part I found is in the beginning stages of healing this codependency. There is a tendency to put out the boundary because you're feeling confident. I just listened to this podcast. They say I need to do this. I know I'm ready to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell them I don't work past 4. And then somebody will ring, ring. And then you'll say, well, my latest appointment's 3 because I'm done at 4. I really needed a 5 o'clock appointment. Do not
Mm-hmm.
rescue it. Listen, do
Mm-hmm.
not rescue it. Just let the boundary stand. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. And what that does also is it starts to have a trickle down effect because it teaches them how to implement some of the same things in their life. They'll say,
Absolutely.
you know what, I'm really glad that you told me that you don't see people during this time and that you didn't change your schedule to accommodate me. Because when it happened to me, I was like, what would Montoyia do?
Yes, I love that. I love
But I
that.
had to practice doing that. I did a lot of breathing and a lot of pausing when it comes to saying what my fees are after I've heard this person tell me their story. And I'm just like, oh, they may not be able to afford it. But whether they're able to afford it is not my business.
That's right. And what I tell my supervisees all the time is when you say something and you know your tendency is to want to rescue it, right? I want you to just stick your tongue on the roof of your mouth and you just press up hard and hold it there until that feeling passes and you let the conversation continue and move through your own discomfort of the moment. And having that intentional thing to do to focus
Mm-hmm.
on in the meantime has sometimes been very helpful to kind of just move it on, keep it going.
Yeah.
So Montoya and I believe in you. You can do this if codependency is one of the things that you're realizing that you struggle with, or through listening to this, you're identifying for the first time. Hey, there's hope. We've
Yeah.
healed, you can heal. And I just want to thank you, Montoya, for being on today and let people know how they can connect with you.
Thank you. They can connect with me at stoppingthechase.com. Also, Stopping the Chase on Instagram and also on Facebook.
Okay, wonderful. And if you want to connect further with me or with the podcast, counselingcommunity.com. We are also on Instagram and Facebook. We have a group on Facebook. We do Dreamers Retreat for Entrepreneurial Therapists. That's the next one that's out. If you are realizing you need to work on your business, not in your business, and take some time to really focus, you are more than welcome to come with us. We're going to be in Cabo in October. Check the website. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Get out there and live your best dang life.